Welcome to Healthy Mind, Happy Soul, a mental health podcast where we explore relevant, relatable topics that shape our minds in a rapidly changing world. I'm your host, Brock Carter, and I hope you'll join me on this journey as we bring science, empathy, and mindfulness together in one place to better understand ourselves. Have you ever noticed that after a bad night of sleep, everything just feels harder? A minor inconvenience feels like a personal attack. You lose your keys and suddenly question your entire ability to function as an adult. Your attention may drift, your patience disappears, and emotions that would normally be manageable start feeling much bigger. Sleep is not passive downtime. It's not a task at the end of our day. It is an active biological process that supports cognition, emotional regulation, our physical health, and our ability to function the next day. Better sleep begins with identifying the actual problem. Is it that you don't have the opportunity to get sleep? Is it that your habits may be a little disrupted? Is there an underlying sleep disorder or other medical condition, a mental health condition, or some combination of the above? This episode is going to be for general education, and it's not individualized medical advice. Persistent sleep problems, severe daytime sleepiness, breathing abnormalities during sleep, or major changes in mood or behavior should all be discussed with a qualified healthcare professional. In our third episode, we're going to talk about what sleep actually is, why the brain and body need it, why so many of us are not getting enough of it, and what we can realistically do to reclaim some control over our nights and therefore have better days. This is not going to be another lecture telling you to buy any expensive supplements, drink any certain kind of tea, or simply stop looking at your phone. And while some of those things can help you, sleep is a little bit more complicated than that. But there are practical things we can do, and the first step is figuring out what kind of sleep problem we are actually dealing with. And before we jump right into what is sleep, I'd like to start off with maybe a sleep myth versus reality. Something you may have heard of. Alcohol helps you sleep. As we know, it may make you drowsy initially, but it commonly disrupts sleep later in the night. So what is sleep? Sleep can look like inactivity from the outside, but internally, the brain and body remain remarkably active. Across the night, we move through different stages of non-REM and REM sleep. And when I say REM, I refer to REM, rapid eye movement. These stages are not interchangeable. They appear to support overlapping but somewhat different processes involving learning, memory, emotional processing, physical restoration, immune regulation, and even metabolic function. We still do not have one single complete explanation for why sleep exists. It likely serves several essential purposes rather than one isolated function. One helpful way to think about sleep is as the brain and body's overnight maintenance period. During sleep, the brain processes information from the day. It strengthens some memories, reorganizes information, kind of like a disk cleanup on a PC, and filters what may or may not be important. Sleep also helps recalibrate emotional systems so that we can respond more proportionately to the stress the following day. The body is also regulating hormones, metabolism, inflammation, immune activity, and tissue repair when needed. Sleep is not the human version of switching a machine off. It is closer to putting the machine into maintenance mode. And you cannot continuously skip maintenance without eventually noticing the consequences. And that leads us into maybe another myth. Everyone needs 8 hours of sleep. Sleep needs vary from person to person. For most adults, 7 or more hours is a reasonable general target, but daytime functioning, quality, timing, and consistency are also key. So we've talked a little bit about what it is, at least what we know of it, touched on it lightly, and for now we can see it as kind of this maintenance period that we do need. But why do we need it? From biochemistry within our cells to the way we walk and talk, healthy sleep plays a role at every level. Sleep supports attention, judgment, memory, reaction time while driving in the morning or night on the way to work, right? And overall executive functioning. These are the mental skills that kind of help us plan, organize, prioritize, and control our impulses. When we are sleep deprived, the emotional brain can become more reactive, while the systems responsible for perspective and self-control become less effective. That does not mean every bad mood is caused by poor sleep. It means insufficient or disrupted sleep can reduce the margin we normally have for handling stress. You may recognize this in ordinary life. After good sleep, a frustrating email is just a frustrating email. After 4 hours of sleep, that same email can feel like your whole world is collapsing. Sleep deficiency has also been associated with physical health problems, accidents, reduced productivity, and difficulties with decision-making and coping. It has a bidirectional relationship with mental health. Psychiatric symptoms can interfere with sleep, and poor sleep can intensify our psychiatric symptoms. And that relationship can become a cycle. You feel anxious, so you can't sleep. You don't sleep, so you feel more emotionally reactive and less capable of managing anxiety the next day. Then you become anxious about whether you will sleep the next night. Eventually, the bed itself can start feeling like a place of pressure, frustration, and performance anxiety at approaching a task you can't achieve rather than rest itself. So maybe another myth: if I can't sleep, I should just stay in bed and keep trying. Well, remaining in bed while increasingly becoming more frustrated can reinforce the association between bed and wakefulness. So, sleep is great. It's good for us. We all know that. Why aren't we getting it? There is no single answer. Several different problems get grouped together under the phrase, I can't sleep. Chief complaint, I can't sleep. Is this an insufficient opportunity? Sometimes the problem is that the person is simply not allowing enough time for sleep. And that may be because of work, parenting, school, caregiving, social activities, gaming, streaming, doom scrolling, or trying to reclaim personal time after everyone else has gone to bed. You may have heard this called revenge bedtime procrastination. You know you have to wake up at 6, you know it's already midnight, but nighttime is the only part of day that feels like it truly belongs to you. So you keep watching, reading, scrolling, working, and that's understandable, but biologically, the alarm still goes off at 6. What about digital stimulation while we're on that topic? Phones can create problems, several at once. You have light exposure, particularly when the screen is bright and close to your face, but content may be just as important. A dim screen does not make an argument on social media emotionally relaxing. A blue light filter does not make a work email less activating. The device also removes stopping cues. Television episodes once ended. Newspapers had a final page. Social media feeds just don't end. And that can be pretty entertaining, we know that. But again, biologically, the alarm still goes off at 6. So the goal is therefore not merely avoid the blue light. It's to reduce light, reduce stimulation, reduce the emotional activation, and reduce the endless opportunity to consume one more thing. I know I've done it myself. Maybe you have too. Maybe it's mental health symptoms, right? Anxiety can create repetitive thinking, physical tension, hypervigilance, and fear about not sleeping. Depression may cause insomnia, early morning awakening, excessive sleep, irregular schedules, or spending long periods in bed without that restorative sleep we need. Trauma-related conditions can involve nightmares, that nighttime hypervigilance, or a sense that relaxing is just unsafe in general. Mania or hypomania can involve a reduced need for sleep rather than simply an inability to sleep. That distinction is very important. Someone who sleeps 3 hours and feels exhausted is describing something quite different from someone who sleeps 3 hours and feels unusually energized, driven, impulsive, or even invincible. ADHD may contribute through delayed routines, time blindness, difficulty disengaging from stimulating activities, or inconsistent schedules. Substance use can also disrupt our sleep. As we said before, alcohol initially causing some drowsiness, but it often fragments our sleep later in the night. Caffeine and nicotine are stimulants. They're abundant, they're ubiquitous, they're stimulants. They have effects like stimulants, and consuming them, too much of them, at certain times, the wrong times, can disrupt sleep. Cannabis may make some people feel sleepy out there, but regular use, changes in use, or even withdrawal from use can also affect sleep architecture and sleep quality. So, what about medical and sleep disorders? Because not every sleep problem is caused by stress or poor discipline. Pain, reflux, breathing problems, urinary frequency, hormonal changes, thyroid conditions, a big one, medication effects, and neurological conditions can also interfere with sleep. Primary sleep disorders also matter. These include obstructive sleep apnea, commonly known as OSA, restless leg syndrome, RLS, circadian rhythm disorders, narcolepsy, parasomnias, and chronic insomnia disorder. Possible warning signs of these things could be loud snoring. Maybe you're choking at night, or you're observed to be choking, or observed to have loud snoring, because obviously you're asleep. A lot of the times we get these reports from others. And if you sleep alone, there are ways to get tested. But gasping during sleep, somebody witnesses pauses in your breathing while you sleep. You wake up the next day and there's this severe daytime sleepiness or falling asleep unintentionally. Frequent naps, right? An irresistible urge to move the legs at night. Recurrent unusual movements or behaviors during sleep. Persistent nightmares. Sleep paralysis accompanied by other concerning symptoms. Regularly sleeping enough hours but still feeling profoundly unrefreshed. Insomnia that continues despite adequate opportunity and reasonable changes. The takeaway is not to diagnose yourself from a podcast. It is to recognize when a sleep problem deserves a little more complete medical evaluation. And what about shift work? Shift workers face an additional challenge. They may be trying to sleep when the biological clock is promoting wakefulness and remain awake when the body is promoting sleep. This is not a failure of motivation. For night shift workers, a dark, cool, quiet bedroom is especially important. Blackout shades, eye masks, earplugs, white noise, and household agreements about uninterrupted sleep can make a meaningful difference. Limiting bright morning light during the commute home may also help some night workers prepare for daytime sleep. Whenever possible, keeping some overlap between sleep periods on work days and days off may be easier on the circadian system than repeatedly flipping between completely opposite schedules. Perfect consistency may not be realistic. The aim is to reduce circadian whiplash wherever possible. And maybe another myth out there. Sleeping late every weekend completely repays sleep debt. I'll make it up. Well, additional sleep may help you feel better, but large schedule shifts can also disrupt those circadian rhythms. And one long sleep does not necessarily reverse every effect of repeated sleep restrictions. So maybe an important distinction now that we're at this point in the podcast. Insomnia or just not enough sleep. Before offering solutions, we need to distinguish insomnia from insufficient sleep. The key question is opportunity. Insomnia occurs when a person has adequate time and the circumstances for sleep, but still has persistent difficulty falling asleep, remaining asleep, or returning to sleep, and experiences meaningful daytime impairment. Insufficient sleep occurs when the available sleep window is too short, whether because of work, responsibilities, habits, or choices. Here's a practical example. Person 1 sleeps from 1 in the morning until 6 because they stay up gaming. I've been there. On vacation, when given 9 uninterrupted hours, they fall asleep quickly and sleep much longer. That kind of points towards insufficient sleep opportunity. Person 2 goes to bed at 10, allows 8 or 9 hours for sleep, feels exhausted, but remains awake for long periods of time. They may also be unable to nap even when given the opportunity. That sounds more consistent with insomnia or another condition interfering with sleep. And of course, there's the DSM-5 criteria for these things. A few useful questions can include, what time do you get into bed? What time do you actually try to go to sleep? And what time do you wake up? How much time do you estimate you are asleep? What happens on weekends or vacations? Can you fall asleep during the day when you have the chance? Why do you believe you are awake? Are you not sleepy? Are you worried, uncomfortable, in pain, using substances, or being disturbed by the environment? When the history is unclear, keeping a sleep diary for 1 to 2 weeks can be more useful than trying to remember an average night. The distinction matters because the treatment for inadequate opportunity is to create more opportunity. The treatment for chronic insomnia is not simply to spend even more time lying awake in bed. And maybe time for another myth, one that you may have heard: good sleep hygiene can cure the insomnia, right? If you have insomnia, you improve your sleep hygiene and you have it. You're better. Sleep hygiene supports healthy sleep, but chronic insomnia often requires a structured intervention, such as CBT. And what about reclaiming control? A realistic sleep plan? Well, let's make it practical. Instead of trying 15 sleep tips at once, begin with a small experiment. Step 1. Protect the wake time. Choose a wake time that you can maintain reasonably and consistently, including most weekends. A stable wake time helps anchor the biological clock. Sleeping several extra hours on days off may feel necessary after a difficult week to catch up on sleep, right? But dramatic schedule shifts can make the following night and Monday morning even more difficult. You do not have to be perfect. Think consistency, not rigidity. And maybe a step 2, create enough opportunity. Work backward from your wake time and give yourself a realistic sleep window. Do not confuse being in bed with being asleep. 8 hours in bed with 2 hours of scrolling is not 8 hours of sleep opportunity. Treat the beginning of your wind-down routine as an appointment rather than waiting until you feel spontaneously responsible to go to sleep. I've fallen into these pitfalls: the doom scrolling at night, the wanting to stay up to play games, watch a movie. Maybe I can stay up a couple hours. That really has an impact on the next day, from mood to your energy and how you can handle everything. So again, part of this plan, step 3, building a landing strip. The brain may not transition directly from work, conflict, gaming, social media, news, directly into sleep. Create a 30 to 60 minute landing strip. Dim the lights. Reduce emotionally activating content. Complete basic tasks such as taking medications as prescribed, brushing your teeth, preparing clothes for the morning, and setting your alarm, at least making sure it's on. I've fallen into that pitfall as well. Choose activities that are pleasant but not highly stimulating: light reading, stretching, calm music, breathing exercises, or a familiar low-stakes program. The routine matters more than making it aesthetically perfect. Maybe a step 4, make the room boring, but in a good way. Keep it cool, dark, and quiet. The blackout curtains, the eye mask goes back to our shift workers. Earplugs, a fan, or a sound machine when appropriate. Try to make the bed a cue for sleep rather than a second office, a movie theater, a dining room, and crisis management center. These are all tenets of good sleep hygiene. Step 5, manage substances and their timing. Caffeine can remain active for hours. A A practical starting point is avoiding it after lunch or at least 6 hours before bed. I know we all have our different caffeine tolerances out there, but adjust it based on your sensitivity. If you're having sleep troubles, you may want to avoid that in the afternoons. Avoid using alcohol as a sleep medication. It may shorten the time it takes to fall asleep, but often produces that more fragmented and lower quality sleep we talked about earlier and in the first myth. Nicotine can also be stimulating. Avoid very heavy meals immediately before bed, but don't force yourself to go to bed painfully hungry. A light snack may be reasonable if that's the case. Limit large amounts of fluid close to bedtime if waking to urinate may be the problem. Exercise regularly, but pay attention to your own response to timing. Many people can tolerate evening exercise. I've known that about myself in the past. While vigorous activity very close to bed may delay sleep for others. Step 6. Stop fighting with the bed. When you can't sleep, avoid repeatedly checking the clock. Clock watching turns the night into a countdown. If I fall asleep now, I'll get 6 hours. Now 5 hours and 42 minutes. Tomorrow is ruined. That calculation increases arousal, which is the opposite of what sleep requires. When you have been awake long enough to feel frustrated or alert, get out of bed, if it's safe to do so. Keep the lights low and do something quiet and unstimulating, that light reading. Return to bed when you feel drowsy. I remember I practiced that myself. Maybe get up, do maybe one small thing that wasn't too stimulating. Pick something up. Get something ready for the morning. And then again, return to bed when you feel drowsy. The goal is to rebuild the association between bed and sleep, not bed and struggle. We're on to step 7. Use naps strategically, and that can be debated. Some say naps are bad. When chronic insomnia is present, long or late afternoon naps may reduce sleep pressure and make nighttime sleep more difficult. When a nap is necessary for safety or functioning, keep it relatively brief and early in the day when possible. Shift workers are a special case. Planned naps may be a useful fatigue management tool depending on the person's schedule and responsibilities. Step 8. Know when sleep hygiene is just not enough. Sleep hygiene is a great foundation, but it's not a cure for every sleep disorder. For chronic insomnia, cognitive behavioral therapy, discussed earlier, CBTI, for insomnia, is generally a first-line behavioral treatment. It involves more than ordinary sleep tips and may include stimulus control, carefully managed sleep scheduling, cognitive strategies, and techniques for reducing sleep-related arousal. If you have practiced reasonable sleep habits and continue struggles falling asleep, the answer is not necessarily to try harder. It may be time to speak with a healthcare professional, a sleep specialist, or a trained CBTI clinician. Now for the real talk. Some sleep advice is delivered as though everyone has complete control over their schedule, home environment, body, employment, and family responsibilities. They do not. A new parent cannot always avoid nighttime awakenings. A nurse cannot turn a rotating shift into a 9-to-5 job through positive thinking. Someone living near a loud road cannot meditate the traffic away. A person experiencing trauma symptoms, chronic pain, housing insecurity, caregiving demands, or medication side effects may need more than a bedtime routine. Sleep is partly personal behavior, but it is also affected by health, work, money, environment, relationships, and social circumstances. So this is not about blaming yourself for every bad night. It's about identifying the pieces that are under your control, making those pieces more supportive, and getting help with the pieces that aren't. Also, do not let the pursuit of perfect sleep become another source of anxiety. No one sleeps perfectly every night. You can have a difficult night and still make it through the next day. You can feel tired without declaring the day as a complete loss. The goal is to not control sleep by force. Sleep cannot be forced. The goal is to create the conditions in which sleep is more likely to occur and then allow it to happen. So, what about maybe one more myth? Feeling tired always means insomnia. We know that by now. That is a no. It may reflect inadequate opportunity, a sleep disorder, a medical condition, medication effects, substance abuse, a mental health condition, or another cause. So, what about a closing challenge? Tonight, do not try to rebuild your entire life. Choose one change at a time. Set a consistent wake time, or move your phone away from the bed. Maybe stop caffeine a little earlier. Dim the lights during your last hour. Maybe write down tomorrow's worries instead of taking them into bed with you. Or begin a 1-week sleep diary and find out what your sleep actually looks like. These small changes become meaningful when they're repeated. Your tomorrow you and those around you, your family, your colleagues, your friends, they need you at your best. So let's go get some well-deserved Z's. Thank you for joining us today for our 3rd episode of Healthy Mind, Happy Soul, a mental health podcast brought to you and produced by Animo Sano Psychiatry, a behavioral health practice based in North Carolina. Until next time, take care of your mind and your soul will follow.